From Providence, Rhode Island, welcome to the Potterverse. It's a podcast dedicated to the book and film universe of Harry Potter. So grab your favorite wands and time turners. Let's step into the night and pursue that flighty temptress adventure. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Mary Larson.
My name is Blake, and I can't tell, as I'm reading this chapter, if I want this included in the movie or if I don't want this included in the movie.
Okay.
In the beginning of reading this chapter, I'm like, oh, thank God this was not included. Like, I am all set. Like this whole little side plot with the half giant thing and I mean, let's just call it the bigotry of, you know, some of the things that these wizards feel. I mean, we've explored that already. We've gone through that already. And the stuff with Ludo Bagman and the goblins, like, I'm all set with it. But then the end of this chapter is why I look at this and I say, this probably should have been in the movie, because it gives you an alternative to the logic of why Harry is continuing to do what he is supposed to do with the Triwizarding Tournament. Like, instead of just laying down like he probably should, there's another motive for Harry to keep going, and that is Hagrid. That's a big deal.
Agreed.
So but I don't know if you would. Well, I'll let you do what you got to do. Sorry.
We are on the same page, because here we are, chapter 24, and this is the quote that I chose to read. "You know what, Harry," he said, looking up from the photograph of his father, his eyes very bright. "When I first met you, you reminded me of me a bit. Mom and Dad gone, and you was a feeling like you didn't fit in Hogwarts, remember? Not sure you were really up to it. And now look at you, Harry, school champion." He looked at Harry for a moment and then said very seriously, "You know what I'd love, Harry? I'd love you to win. I really would. It'd show 'em all. You don't have to be a pureblood to do it. You don't have to be ashamed of what you are. It'd show 'em Dumbledore's the one who's got it right, letting anyone as long as they can do magic." Reminded me of me. Oh, Hagrid. Just want to give him a big old hug.
Oh, Hagrid.
Just want to give him a big old hug. Well, there you go. Normally we talk about it, but you just gave your little insight, and I agree. I think we're on the same page that this is so important for us to have with Hagrid, who is my favorite character. So anytime I can be with him, I'm very happy. Even though I can't read him at all. I'm like, I don't know how to read. Thank God for Jim Dale. Anyway, before we get into the rest of this chapter, we wanted to remind you that you can find Blake and myself on all sorts of social media. We stream our video aspects of the podcasts on Facebook and on YouTube. Make sure that you're on our complimentary texting list so that you are able to join us for the live discussion. The easiest way to do that is to grab your phone and text the phone number 81010, and in the message field, do the @ @ElderWand. That will sign you up for the complimentary texts. And we also want to thank our friends at jointhenerdclan.com for making all of this possible. All right, let's get into the show.
Let's do it.
I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good.
So a little recap about what happened in this chapter. Once again, it is chapter 24, Rita Skeeter Scoop.
Scoop. There you go.
This is a really hard chapter for me to say with my accent. Rita
Skeeter Scoop.
Rita Skeeter Scoop. Yeah, but see, it's funny with our accents.
Yeah, that's true.
Try to say it properly.
I
know.
Rita Skeeter's Scoop.
Yes,
yeah, that don't work.
Rita Skeeter's Scoop.
Don't work.
Rita Skeeter Scoop.
Rita Skeeter Scoop. It's much.
Good Lord.
You can't tell me that it doesn't flow better when you say Rita Skeeter Scoop.
Rita Skeeter Scoop. Hey, you know, if you're not from the New York to Boston area and you don't have one of those kind of funny accents,
sucks to be you.
Just try it out. Rita Skeeter
cousin.
Scoop. Okay, so
From
in this chapter, Ron and Hermione are happy. Sorry, those of you who are on video, I'm sorry, my hair looks bananas, but we're just going to deal with it right now. It does. I look like I have a what are those things called? Mandrake. It looks like I have a mandrake coming out of my head.
Wait, what? Okay.
I'm pulling it out of the pot. That's the sound that they make. What?
Oh,
I'll just put my headphones on so I don't have to see half of my hair. No, it doesn't work.
That makes it worse.
Okay, now I just look like Neville Longbottom. Okay, so in this chapter, just to recap, Ron and Hermione no longer fighting. It's a little like beautifully awkward, but there's a truce going on. Hagrid is not the Magical creatures teacher right
Mary
now.
can talk today.
Grubbly playing. I can't at all. And Rita Skeeter Scoop is so mean. It's so mean. It's so bad about Hagrid. And Hagrid's really sad. And then the kids go to Hogsmeade. They see Rita Skeeter Scoop in person, get a little fiery, see Ludo Bagman. Then they come back and they have some tea with Dumbledore and Hagrid and say, "We love you. Please come back."
Oh, he's so cute.
Don't worry about Rita Skeeter Scoop.
Rita Skeeter Scoop. That's going to be a shirt.
Say that 5 times fast.
Or just Rita Skeeter. That's it. Just Rita Skeeter. Just in plain block letters.
Nobody just wants that. Nobody just wants that. All right. So this is just the beginning.
Yes.
Of the treachery that can happen in the media.
Yeah. I do want to read the article that Rita Skeeter Scoop is because it is so... Rita Skeeter, man. And it is so expertly written, especially when you consider who's actually writing it.
Let's just do it.
And that is the author. The author is writing this, but she's doing it through the guise of Rita Skeeter. And that is remarkable.
Okay, so Rita has a New York accent.
Okay? Oh, okay. All right, fair enough.
Dumbledore's giant mistake. This is going to be my different perspective, okay?
Okay,
just getting it out of the way.
Hold on, let's just play it right now then.
Where's my crocodile purse?
Wicked. You're Harry Potter. I'm Hermione Granger. And you are?
Rita Skeeter.
Rita, what do you got?
I'm going to read my latest article.
Okay.
I don't even know what kind of accent I have, but it's one of those.
It's like a New Jersey, New York kind of thing.
I'm here for it. Get me a bagel. Make yourself busy. Dumbledore's giant mistake. Albus Dumbledore, eccentric headmaster, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, has never been afraid to make controversial staff appointments, writes Rita Skeeter. That's me, special correspondent. In September of this year, he hired Alistair Mad-Eye Moody, the notoriously jinx-happy ex-Auror, who teach defense against the dark arts, a decision that caused many raised eyebrows in the Ministry of Magic, given Moody's well-known habit of attacking anybody who makes a sudden movement in his presence. Mad-Eye Moody, however, looks responsible and kindly when set beside the pot human Dumbledore employs to teach care of magical creatures, Rubeus Hagrid, who admits to being expelled from Hogwarts in his 3rd year, has enjoyed the position of gamekeeper at the school ever since, a job secured for him by Dumbledore. Last year, however, Hagrid used
by Dumbledore.
By Dumbledore. Okay.
You know what you are? You're Marissa Tomei right now in My Cousin Vinny.
Hey, I'm here for it. Last year, however, Hagrid used his mysterious influence over the headmaster to secure the additional post of Care of Magical Creatures teacher over the heads of many qualified candidates. An alarmingly large and ferocious-looking man, Hagrid has been using his newfound authority to terrify students with his care with a succession of horrific creatures. While Dumbledore turns a blind eye, Hagrid has maimed several pupils during a series of lessons that many admit to being very frightening.
Very frightening.
I was attacked by a hippogriff, and my friend Vincent Crabbe got a bad bite off a flabberworm, says Draco Malfoy, a 4th-year student. We all hate Hagrid, and we're just too scared to say anything. Hagrid has no intention of ceasing his campaign of intimidation, however. In conversations with the Daily Prophet reporter last month, he admitted breeding creatures that he has dubbed blast-ended scroats, highly dangerous crosses between manticores and fire crabs. The creation,
little dear.
Oh my God! The creation of the new breeds of magical creatures is, of course, an activity usually closely observed by the Department of Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. Hagrid, however, considers himself to be above such petty restrictions. Do you want me to keep going? Because this goes on for a long time.
Keep going.
Oh, well,
I'm getting a kick out of this.
Guess what he says? He says, I was just having fun, he says, before hastily changing the subject. And as if that weren't enough, the Daily Prophet has now unearthed evidence that Hagrid is not, as he has always pretended, a pure blood wizard.
Dun, dun, dun.
He is not, in fact, even pure human. His mother, which we can exclusively reveal, is none other than the giantess Wolfuda. Whoops, hold on. Frid Wolfa. Adele Dazeem, okay?
Adele Dazeem.
Is none other than the giantess Frid Wolfa, whose whereabouts are currently unknown. Bloodthirsty and brutal, the giants brought themselves to the point of extinction by warring amongst themselves during the last century. Just filling you in, a little exposition.
Sure.
The handful that remained joined the ranks of he who must not be named and were responsible for some of the worst mass muggle killings of his reign of terror. I really don't care, though, because I'm a Slytherin and I'm a pureblood or whatever. But, that's beside the point. While many of the giants who served he who must not be named were killed by the Aurors, the working against the dark side, Frid Wolfa was not among them because she was, making whoopee. It is possible she escaped to one of the giant communities still existing in the foreign mountain ranges. If his antics during care of magical creature lessons are any guide, however, Frid Wolfa's son appears to have inherited her brutal nature. In a bizarre twist, Hagrid is reputed to have developed, get this, a close relationship with a boy who brought around you-know-who's fall from power, thereby giving Hagrid's own mother, like the rest of you-know-who's supporters, into hiding. Perhaps Harry Potter is unaware of the unpleasant truth about his large friend, but Albus Dumbledore surely has a duty to ensure that Harry Potter, along with his fellow students, is warned about the dangers of associating with pod giants. I close my case.
The defense rests, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Wow. First of all, you should have been in The Sopranos.
Me?
Number one. Oh yeah, your accent's phenomenal.
Got too many freckles.
And then the other thing too
They'd be
is
like, she's not Italian.
Marissa Tomei better watch out for herself because what you just did was exquisite. That was just artwork right there. Good job, Marvin. Good job.
Thank you.
The way that this is written is wild.
Love it.
Wild.
I'm here for
and
it.
again, the fact that the author can take such a different voice from her own, even the writing style is so, it's such a huge cavernous contrast to how the author actually writes. The way that it just keeps going and going and going. Like there are just commas for days and there are ellipses for days and it never ends.
Yeah, I realized that halfway reading.
It's so that I think that in and of itself is worthy of an entire episode of the Potterverse. How we could analyze how and the style of how it's written. But I think what's also of note is that the author, via the voice, through the voice of Rita Skeeter, what she does is she immediately ties Hagrid to Voldemort.
Yes.
And she does it in an indirect spinning way that would make your head spin if you weren't looking at this with a more critical eye.
It's wild to read it right now. It's wild to
Yeah.
be reading controversial media coverage right now.
Yes.
We're January 2022.
And
for those of you listening in the future, hi.
and all of the assumptions that this person makes about Hagrid and Hagrid's mother and how, it's possible that she's in these mountains and obviously she's not talking to Hagrid and there's no connection because of Harry Potter. And, the fact of the matter is that Hagrid is evil and he's evil because he's a giant. And
Dumbledore's letting it all happen.
Dumbledore knows this and he's letting it all happen. He should know. And the fact is that Dumbledore has hired all of these people before and none of it's been a good hire. She's wrapping it all into this one narrative.
Yep.
It is scary.
Agreed.
That something like this can exist, that something like this does exist, and there are people that buy this stuff on either side.
Yes.
On whatever end upon which you find yourself, that's irrelevant. There are people on opposing sides that buy this kind of, there are bros. There are those people that buy crap like this as truth. And that's scary on either end. It doesn't matter who you are. R, D, red, blue, doesn't matter.
Oh, we're talking real life.
Yeah, in real life.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like there are people that buy stuff like this.
Yes.
And I'm sure that in the universe, there are people that buy stuff like this.
Yes.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yes.
And especially with the notion that we already have this predisposition against magical creatures as a wizarding community, the fact that Rita Skeeter, can tie Hagrid into this community so effortlessly and then loop that community into Voldemort's world and then show the ineptitude of Dumbledore and how he's allowed all of this is wild.
Agreed.
Wild. And it shows you how crazy reporting like this can be, how stories can be manipulated and manufactured, and why people are so
fired up
and easily manipulated.
When you're taught to trust the press.
Well, no, I mean, yes, but
says the girl who was a reporter.
I know, true. But I think it actually ties into the end of this chapter with Dumbledore when he's talking about, listen, all these people, they're not all good. They're not all bad. People are bits and pieces of whatever it is. And that part of you that is dominant, you're looking for validation. So if you're on the end of the group of people who believe that, giants are bad and Hagrid sucks because he's a giant and Dumbledore sucks because he's employing the giant and he's employing Alistair Moody, this article will give you validation.
We're just going to go into it. It's so weird because we, of course, a lot of the people who get traditional newspapers are frequently of an older generation. The kids are busy at school. You get the couple of them where they get their Owls and the Daily Prophet Arise, but a lot of them, they're out, they're at work, they pick it up there, maybe they have it sent to their house. A lot of these people who are of the older generation in Harry Potter were around when Voldemort was at power. Were around when the giants were acting up.
Yes.
And, we look at Ron, and Ron often is described as, because he is a pureblood and because he kind of has these connotations of half-breeds, of giants. It's almost seen like as a wizarding racist sometimes that people see Ron in that way. And it got me thinking about how the Japanese and the Germans, if your family really was active during World War II, how they might have talked about someone who was German.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, my grandfather, my grandfather was a pilot. He was a pilot of a B-24 in World War II. He did not like Japanese people. Just wouldn't be caught dead in the same room or an elevator. And if he was, by chance, he would like come out and say, yeah, like we won the war. Like, no. And he didn't mind Germans so much, but he did not like Japanese people.
So, no, Ron is not a terrible person, but he has grown up in a pureblood family, probably his cousins and aunt and uncles, and they live in the borough, so they don't talk to a lot of people, you know? So he's grown up, not to say that Molly and Arthur are bad parents per se, but, I was thinking about that as I was reading this, is like, you think about people who kind of grew up in these war areas, and that's how they were. You think about how many movies the bad guy is the one with the German accent. that were made, you know, maybe around 80s or whatever, because those were still the people.
Die Hard.
Yeah, like all of the
Hans Gruber.
Indiana Jones. Like,
Yeah,
you're
right.
sitting there and you're like, I don't know who the bad guy is, the German one. Like, you know, there were all these different things that were created, and I think that society-wise, like, that's what a lot of people were ingrained. And even as much as, like, the Scottish clans, you know, so my family is Scottish, and my dad grew up being told he couldn't play with the Campbells.
Yeah.
Like, there were a couple of kids on his bus or whatever, and his grandmother, and that was from like warring from stealing sheep, like hundreds and hundreds of years ago,
back in the 1300s.
Yeah, like, you can't trust him, and you know, it's like, it gets passed down. It gets passed down through these parents and through these families. So, you know, I'm not saying that Ron speaking this way or having these opinions of giants, you know, is okay. But I'm saying that particularly with the way he was raised and the people that he interacted with, I see how that can happen. I see how it's happened in our society.
Sure.
Not that it's right. Not that it's right at all. And thank goodness there are people like Hermione to challenge him and to educate him. And I think that that's really what it comes down to, whether you're talking about the press or whether you're talking about misconceptions about a certain type of person, whether it is liberal or conservative, whether it is, you know, someone from a different country, whether it is someone who, you know, may align with a different gender than you understand. Like, having the conversations, you know, having a different opinion at first isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're willing to have these conversations and learn other people's point of views. And I think that is what our society has been able to do with the repercussions of World War II.
Sure.
You know, things like that. And so
it's all been part of the conversation. And you know, without getting too political, I think the idea of having these conversations, like, I think of Hamilton. You know, I always think of that scene in Hamilton where Jefferson says about Hamilton, listen, I know you hate the guy, but let's just listen to what he has to say. And I'm not trying to glorify our founding fathers or whatever. That's not the point. The idea behind it is, you may hate the guy, but let's just at least hear it. Let's see if we can make something work. And right now, and in the case of this particular article, and a lot of the current climate, just people aren't willing to listen anymore.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to conversate because they have validation from articles like this. Because this is what makes them feel better about their inner feelings. Either way. And I can understand why I can appreciate Ron's upbringing. And I can appreciate why he takes the stance that he does. And he takes that stance without even necessarily knowing why he's taking it.
It's just all he's known. He was probably told stories about them, and they were always the bad guys. Just as I said, like, the movies we watched growing up, the Germans were the bad guys.
Right. And it's almost kind
the
of
Giants are probably his bad guys in stories.
It's almost kind of like when you grow up and when you're in your 30s.
And German friends know that I love you. Please know that I'm trying to.
When you're in your 30s, the way that we are, Marvin, and you recognize
only for a little longer.
You recognize that, like, you're a parent right now, and you just
not everyone in their 30s is a parent.
Well, no, but I'm talking about you and I right now.
Oh, okay.
Like, you recognize that you're a parent, and you're just getting by. Like, by the skin of your teeth, like, you're just hanging on by fingernails. But you grew up thinking, my parents are superheroes, or you grew up thinking that my parents know everything, or you grew up thinking that, you know, like, my parents are safe. They're always going to make the right choice. They're always going to have my best interests at heart. And then when you turn to this age and you realize, wait, my parents weren't superheroes. My parents didn't know everything. They were just like me. Like, they were just getting by like me right now. I think that's kind of the thing that Ron is going through at this moment when something like this comes out, or when he's talking to Hermione about all of this. It's his moment of, I grew up thinking one thing, and wait, is that wrong?
I felt this way with religion. So, like, I had grown up.
We're talking about all the good stuff today.
We're going all in. Listen, you take a break from the Potterverse and we bring it. We're not even.
There are three things you don't talk about in the Northeast: religion, politics, and the Kennedys. Like, just leave them where they are.
We'll keep the Kennedys out of this, but it's, you know, you talk about how your parents were superheroes until now, and I didn't have that happen now. I had that happen when I was young. But on the flip side, I was raised in a very, very religious household. And, I went to church multiple times a week. I went to the only camps I went to were religious camps. The musical competitions that I did, they were all through my church. And so I just figured that's how everyone was. And then when I went to college and I realized not everybody else went to snow Bible camp and to summer Bible camp and didn't go to musical competitions where they played Shine Jesus Shine on their saxophone. It was this whole new world when you're in this bubble. So for me, it was this religious bubble.
Yep.
And that was part of my family. And so that's, once again, it wasn't that it was bad, but I came in almost being naive about different things. Oh, you don't believe in this? And that's, people believe in different things. And it was a lot. So I'm not saying that Ron is good by having these, but I'm saying that I can appreciate yes, where he's coming from, as he is the only pure blood of the trio, as he is the only wizard born. And as I said, he read the Tales of Beedle the Bard growing up, and Lord knows what other stories about giants or, ghost stories that Fred or George would tell him that the giant was the bad guy. So
it's part of the ingrained culture.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, the fact of the matter is, again, that Ron is in a place where he grew up thinking one thing, not even recognizing why he thought those things or believed them. I suppose we're taking the agency out of Ron a little bit here. We're giving him a little bit of an excuse because at the same time, we do have somebody like Hermione who has spent so much time with Spew, and how this approach that Hermione has with Hagrid is a little bit more of an adult, of a more mature method for fighting against
it's someone they know.
Injustice.
It's someone that he's known this entire time and who he has a real relationship with. He doesn't have a real relationship with Dobby. So, it makes me feel almost like, having a dear friend of yours who you had no idea feels the political opposite of you until you have that awkward conversation where you're like, oh my gosh, wow, okay, you see things differently. But they have these conversations, and he is able to step back and say, I can't believe I didn't know this about Hagrid this entire time. You see all the synapses kind of happen in his brain where he has to start rewriting it, whereas Harry and Hermione, it's been what it's been the entire time.
Yeah, and this Hermione does something really smart here. She says, well, I thought he must be, she said, shrugging. I knew he couldn't be pure giant because they're about 20 feet tall. But honestly, all this hysteria about giants, they can't all be horrible. It's the same sort of prejudice that people have towards werewolves. It's just bigotry, isn't it? And it's important that she says werewolves as opposed to elves. Oh, sorry, I'm like pointing you or stabbing you with this pencil.
Well, werewolves
here.
puts it into Lupin perspective.
Exactly. That's my point.
Who did try to kill them last year.
That is a fair point. There's the elephant in the room, okay?
We'll just put that out there, which is why he's no longer a professor at Hogwarts.
But the point, I
love Lupin.
The logic still, it holds water in that she's not making a comparison to Spew, which is something that Harry and Ron have both handedly just dismissed.
Correct.
And now she's making it connected to Lupin.
Correct.
And when she ties it in that way, it almost reminds me of she's doing the opposite end of what Rita Skeeter is doing. Rita Skeeter's tying in all the bad to the giants and forming a case against them, whereas Hermione is not necessarily at the opposite end, but she certainly has opposite means and opposite intentions, and she uses the same tactic in a more eloquent way to validate Hagrid's existence as a half giant. It's important that she does that.
It is.
Because she connects it to a character that we all know and love in Lupin. and who Ron and Harry love.
You know, one of the things, because I feel like we should just get all the Hagrid stuff done at this point.
Well, it's kind of hard because the whole chapter is about Hagrid.
Oh. One of the things that just breaks my heart for Hagrid, put this into perspective, is, you know, his mom left him when he was born. And first off, 20 feet tall.
Yeah, that's not small.
I don't know how that works. I'm not going to lie. Anyway.
If his dad was sitting on his shoulder.
Hey, stop. Family friendly.
I don't, not just.
It's just interesting. Okay.
That's
I mean, it's no blast and it's screwed. Okay, we'll just put it that way. So.
You said it, not me.
Hey, exactly. So, you know, he says that his mom left and he was nervous that because his dad died when he was, 12? Oh, like a second year of Hogwarts. I think that's what it was. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it just right now. His dad died second year of Hogwarts, and then Hagrid was expelled the third year.
Oh, brutal.
So Hagrid grows up without his mom. Then his dad finally gets him into Hogwarts. His dad has no idea what's going on, okay? He's got like this half-giant son, but at least Dumbledore gets him in. And then his dad dies, and then he's somehow friends with Voldemort, and Voldemort gets him expelled.
Oh, you think about the stuff that he has gone through. You can understand why Hagrid barricades himself into his little hut.
And why he connects with kids.
Sure. And here's another little deeper, darker thing.
Oh.
Why he relies on drink so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last time he felt this bad, he was getting hammered.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Hagrid has imbibed in some adult beverages.
Therapy. Once again, we've talked about this before.
All the therapy.
But it broke my heart. It broke my heart to kind of realize what a terrible, you know, we ourselves, Blake and I, had a really rough 2021. And Hagrid had a bad year.
Wicked. I think he's had a couple of bad years here.
Yeah, but just that, and dad died, yes. Now you're expelled. Goodbye.
Yeah, at that
That's
point.
What I'm trying to get at.
That's a bad year. That's a bad year. And I like how the author does use Skeeter's voice to tie in last year's occurrences with with Buckbeak and the Hippogriff with Malfoy. It just taking us back a little bit through the narrative to finally deliver on what Malfoy kind of promised last year, and using that and like Malfoy's proud of it. He's off shoving this article to Harry and to everybody, being like, yeah, here you go. Look what happened. Told you I'd get you a little bit. And the fact that also, too, is that Slytherins have the paper. Like, they're getting the paper sent to them.
You know that Malfoy has a subscription. His mom sends it to him with his Eagle Owl.
Good point. I think it's interesting that he gets a subscription, yet none of the Gryffindors have a paper.
They get it every once in a while.
I know, but I'm saying it's just interesting that...
Well, Malfoy was in it, so you know his mom sent it to him being like, honey, you're famous.
Yeah, that's because you know that always happens with people.
They framed it. Oh, it's in Malfoy Manor right now.
Guaranteed.
There's like a shadow box with it.
With a light, nice little spotlight
with
on it.
His prefect badge.
Actually, I would say that it's probably like LED lighting behind the shadow box.
Green.
Oh, definitely green. We don't do any other color than green. By the way, I just noticed, inadvertently, today, you are wearing a Gryffindor shirt, and I'm wearing a Slytherin shirt.
I thought you did that on purpose.
I did not do this on purpose whatsoever. That is wild. And I'm just noticing that now. Sorry, go ahead.
I loved how much time Dumbledore hangs out with Hagrid. You know, we get to see Dumbledore a lot as we go forward in these books, but we still have to kind of remember that Harry doesn't have like a super duper relationship with Dumbledore yet. And Ron and Hermione certainly don't. Dumbledore's a busy dude. We talk about this all the time. Like, what's he doing all the time?
Right.
But he takes the time to sit down, have tea, read all these letters that former students have written in, that parents are writing in, and really is talking to Hagrid, you know, begging him to stay on staff.
Yeah.
And I just think that this is a beautiful moment from Dumbledore.
Yeah, absolutely. To sit down, take that moment, and to be like, no, you're coming back to work on Monday. Like, I understand what's going on here. I get it. And Grubbly Plank has been here for you. And there's even a part where Hermione recognizes the fact that Grubbly Plank is probably a better teacher for magical creatures than Hagrid is, but she doesn't bring herself to even like really acknowledge it. What did you think about that moment for Hermione? And does their relationship, meaning the trio and Hagrid, get in the way of what's best for Hogwarts? Because is Hagrid being the care of magical creatures teacher best for Hogwarts?
Not particularly in this moment. I mean, he's making up creatures, which is against the rules. He has no idea what he's doing. I do think that, like, he didn't have a lesson plan. He doesn't have a curriculum.
He doesn't strike me as the curriculum kind of guy.
And maybe this is why Dumbledore's there, because he's saying, you know, as the headmaster, I probably should have gone over the Common Core standards with you a little bit more, helped you learn how to write a lesson plan. Like, Hagrid didn't go to teacher college. He got expelled at 13 years old.
We changed math, Hagrid. We changed it.
Changed it. That means you can't breed new animals.
I know you're not supposed to change math, but guess what? We did.
Yeah. Okay, Hagrid doesn't even, you know, go to dinner or lunchtime all the time. You know, there's a teacher's room where we've talked about where they all hang out and chat and
absolutely.
whatever, and maybe they show their lesson plans, they talk about stuff. He's down at his hut. Okay, he has no idea. It'd be like making Blake a veterinary science teacher. Good luck, Blake. Okay, if you want your contract, if you want full benefits, because you're only part-time right now as gamekeeper, but if you want full benefits, you can take this job.
Yep.
You would figure that out.
And here is a big vat of fire whiskey. Go have fun.
Yeah.
What do you think I'm going to do?
So do I think
I'm going to sit at home, play Madden all day, drink fire whiskey?
Is the most is the best choice? No. But have we all had a teacher who we sat there and we said, how did you get hired? Maybe that's what they had left.
That's true. I had a Spanish teacher like that, where it was just like, dude, how are you here right now?
How can't even speak Spanish.
No, she couldn't speak English, which I got. I understood, but you couldn't. It was hard. It was like.
I loved that when you had actually native speaking foreign language teachers.
No, I think that's great if you're able to like.
Understand anything.
Communicate it the way that it should be communicated so we can all learn together, especially for an idiot like me where I just cannot speak another language. It is very hard for me. But I remember thinking, like, how was this person brought in on staff? It was crazy.
Well, that's my 2 cents.
But the fact that Dumbledore is there saying what he is saying and recognizing that despite whatever is in this article and how much nonsense it is, people do love Hagrid, and that Hagrid does have Dumbledore's support, regardless of whatever, you know, this crap is.
Yeah.
That is really good. And that eventually leads us to the idea that, you know, Hagrid does want Harry to win so that people like Malfoy, people who, believe this style writing as 100% truth so that that there's a voice against that. And that's why I struggle with the notion that all of this should have been in the film.
Oh, you see Seamus Finnegan's mother? She's sitting there with her little tea.
Oh, goodness gracious.
What's going on about this? I thought Hagrid was good.
Yeah.
I hope my little Seamus is okay.
That
agreed. It would have been great in the film.
You know, it's hard because if you do this, then you got to get into the whole half giant thing with Madame Maxime and how she kind of rebuffs Hagrid. And then you have to get into all of the reporting from Rita Skeeter. And then you kind of have to get into the whole ladybug thing eventually.
Beetle.
Hashtag whatever it is. Hashtag spoilers. And how she's able to get this information.
I love that you don't know because you haven't actually read this book.
That's true. And then as a result of that, you have to get into all the blast-ended scroots, and then you have to get into...
it's just a lot. There's a lot of elements, yes.
And I imagine writing this movie must have been a freaking nightmare.
Agreed. Because in the movie, you get Cedric Diggory saying, hey, take your egg and go take a bath. And boom, Harry's in the tubby with Moaning Myrtle.
Relatively quick, yes.
Yeah, tubby time, okay? So there's none of this going on, but I agree with you. Having him decide, I want to win this for all the people who have been seen as lesser than.
Yeah, but not only that, but Hagrid specifically.
Yes.
And that's not explicitly said.
But he talks about how he feels bad lying to Hagrid.
Right. And as a reader, you can infer, based on the text, that it is for Hagrid. Yes. Like, he doesn't like... He does lie to him only to spare him, in a way. Like, that he's lying to spare his own jealousy, his own anger towards Cedric, and his own nonsensical grudge against Cedric because he likes Cho. You know, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
all I could hear in my head was Avril Lavigne. Hey, you, I don't like your girlfriend. Think you need a new one. Like
Good
all that
point.
Teenage angst when all of a sudden you just hate the person who's dating the one that you love.
Good point. I agree. Let's just talk about Ludo Bagman real quick. Showing up, and the goblins are pissed, and he kind of just shoos it off as, you know, they're upset because what's his name there?
Barty Crouch.
Barty Crouch ain't showing up to work. And I like how the trio kind of joked that it was Percy who's probably poisoned him or whatever. But you can kind of see, and
Bertha Jorkins is mentioned again.
Right, exactly.
Still can't find her.
Still can't find her. These are things that are happening. And as someone who is a cynic at heart, you can see why Bagman is imploring that he help Harry win, because you can infer that he's got money on Harry to win, and the goblins are busting his balls because where's my money? Mm-hmm. Where's my money, bro? Mm-hmm. Where's my money? And he uses these ways to manipulate people. And like also too, when Fred and George show up to buy him a drink, the guy takes off.
Yep.
It's
he's shady.
Little bit of shady stuff.
He is shady for sure.
Anything else that you want to talk about in this chapter, my love?
No,
nothing. You're good. Mm-hmm. We already did our different perspective.
I know.
You did the Marissa Tomei, which was fantastic. Oh my goodness gracious!
I try.
Let's do some listener questions, shall we? Let's do it.
Oh, Miles here.
All right, this one comes from Dejana. If you remember, Dejana took all of our podcasts in like a week and a half. Mm-hmm. She writes in, she says, "Thank you so much for reading my email, and I'm so sorry that it was long. I never know when to stop, unfortunately. And thank you, Mr. Blake, for the free gift of choice. But if I could I forward this gift to a random listener that emails you next? I think Christmas is about giving, and I'm sure someone would absolutely adore something from the Mary and Blake store that they've probably been dreaming of and maybe unable to get at this moment. I hope you and your family have a wonderful Christmas, and I'm truly glad everyone is feeling better. I can't wait to listen again for the fourth time from the top now, and I hope to join the Nerd Clan very soon."
Thanks, Dejana.
That is very, very kind of you.
Is.
Thank you for that, and we will definitely forward this gift. Mm-hmm. This one comes from Ava. She says, "I love all your podcasts, especially the Potterverse. Thank you for all of that you do,
Thanks,
Mary
Ava.
and Blake. When you were talking about how differently Harry and Cedric tip each other off to the first and second tasks, I saw it as a reflection of their house traits. Ooh. Harry the Gryffindor is very clear about dragons because he's deeply concerned for his safety and Cedric's. Who cares about the rules? This is a high stakes and dangerous setting.
Preach.
Cedric the Hufflepuff can't quite bring himself to break the rules of the tournament and tell Harry how to solve the clue directly. That wouldn't be fair. So he gives him enough to get there himself. I feel like this dichotomy plays out again and again at the end of Goblet of Fire in the graveyard, where Harry immediately knows that they need to go. And Cedric still thinks that the portkey might be a legitimate part of the third task. # spoilers. Do you think that there's a lesson the book points to us, when it comes to the houses and how characters either live into or deviate from their traditional traits.
Ooh. I'm just laughing because I continue to be Gryffindor. I'm like, give me an actionable item, clearly stated. Okay, what is the plan? I don't need a riddle. That's really, really interesting. And I'm going to definitely be looking at those traits, particularly through Cedric going forward.
Yeah, Ava, I think this is an important thing for all of us to recognize. And even if it's not, on the nose, in your face when you're reading this, especially as you do a reread, the way that Mary is and I am, except for this book. But it's something to keep an eye on going forward. How are these people acting, not just in our interactions, clearly Gryffindor and Slytherin, but in their actions throughout the rest of the books, and how do their actions define their character? And how does their house define their actions?
What's hard is that Hufflepuff gets least recognized through different characters, so you don't really get to have as much time with them, and I think that's what we use and need Cedric for. I mean, you think about Slytherin, for example, we get to hang out with, yes, the obvious Slytherins,
Yes.
Snape and Malfoy, but Slughorn is a Slytherin. Rita Skeeter is a Slytherin. There's different people who, Gilderoy Lockhart was a Ravenclaw, so just to be able to see the different aspects of the prisms that these people are, we don't get that as much time with Hufflepuff. We do, thanks to Newt Scamander and Fantastic Beasts, but that'll be something that we keep in mind.
That actually kind of leads into the next email. This one comes from April. She says, I just saw the preview for the last Fantastic Beasts movie.
I didn't even know that this was going to be the next email.
I know, that's great.
Little handoff.
This is good stuff. By the way, if you haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, go on YouTube or whatever and check out the latest trailer for the Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore. It's actually pretty good. I look forward to it. And also, side note, this movie is written by Steve Kloves, who has written all of the Harry Potter films except for Order of the Phoenix. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more continuity in terms of the writing. But back to the email. April says, I'm very excited about the release of this movie, and I've really enjoyed the backstory of Dumbledore and Grindelwald. I've heard you mention in the Potterverse that you don't enjoy these movies, and I was just curious why you don't like them. I think Mary and I have very different reasonings why we don't like them as much, but I would like to hear yours first.
Okay.
Go on.
First, I don't love anyone in the series. And whenever I have a television show that I don't love somebody, it takes me a really, really long time to connect with it and want to rewatch it. So frequently I give up on things if I don't love somebody right away. And I know I'm supposed to love Newt Scamander, but I just don't yet. And I enjoy him a great deal. So please don't hate on me. But I don't see myself in any of the characters, and that's something that often helps me if I am feeling disconnected with people. So that's one of the reasons. It's also very, very dark visually, so I find it hard to watch a lot of the times.
And thematically, too. I mean, especially the second film.
Yeah. So I think for me, I grew up using Harry Potter as a form of escapism. Like, it helped really, as many people do, it helped get me through a lot of tough times. So a lot of the stuff that I reread or rewatch isn't of necessarily the darkest material. And even with the Harry Potter movies that do cover the dark stuff, I find that there are such strong moments of levity, but there's still also so much color and joyous
and
things.
Love and togetherness.
And
that combat that darkness.
That also, I've had the history with the trio, for example, or with these other people, that it kind of gets me through it. And I don't have that with the Fantastic Beasts cast. So is it a bad movie? It is not. It's just, it's not something that I put on the background on my days that I'm sick, you know? And I think that that's what Harry Potter for me is, a cozy blanket. It's my happy place. And so, you know, whenever I'm sick, Blake's like, okay, what do you want? You want Harry Potter?
And it's always, yes, and mashed potatoes.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I watch the Fantastic Beasts movies. We haven't even watched them yet with the kids because they're a wee bit dark. But that's really where I'm at. Blake, you go.
Yeah, for me, I think it's twofold. First, the author is the screenplay writer of these films. And also she gets story by credit, right? So the author is great at writing her books. she is not a screenwriter, in my opinion, because she is so detailed and she has these worlds that she's created, and they're not even massive. I mean, they're gargantuan worlds, and to include all of the things that she wants to include, but do them in a timely and efficient manner, I don't think she's capable of doing it. And that, I kind of call this George Lucas disease, because who the hell is going to tell George Lucas no when it comes to Star Wars? And that is what happened with the prequel trilogy. Nobody could tell George Lucas no. It's his world. It's Star Wars. And the author has that issue. No, who is going to tell her no? And it's her world. You just forcing her, allowing her to just have free reign over all of this was the wrong choice for the first two films, which is why I brought up Steve Kloves earlier, because he is writing the third film. And he is an accomplished film writer. I mean, he is great. And he wrote the entire Harry Potter series, except for Order of the Phoenix. So having that continuity in there is going to be important. The second part of all of this is the main character, Newt Scamander. The problem is that the character upon which this whole franchise has been based is the most boring character
He's not
of the
boring it. No.
Well, I let you say what you needed to say. Let me say what I need to say.
Okay.
He's the most boring character of the whole franchise.
To you.
And that's not just me saying that. You want to know why? It's the franchise that's saying that. Because the first film was about Newt Scamander. Yay, great. The second film was about Grindelwald. The third film was going to be about Dumbledore. It's about other characters around whom Newt Scamander orbits. It's not about him. It's not Harry Potter and. It's not Newt Scamander and. It's Fantastic Beasts and Dumbledore, which inherently doesn't make sense. So that's why I don't like these films as much. I mean, I like them because they're in the Wizarding World, and I think the Wizarding World is great, and I want to spend more time in it.
Should have been Wizarding World in the 40s with Newt.
Yeah, sure.
Or is it 20s? When even do these take place? 20s?
I think this is the 20s and the 30s.
Wizarding World in the 30s.
Yeah, in the 30s.
With Grindelwald.
So, like, or if you want to do one-offs, like Rogue One, okay, do Grindelwald, and that's the movie. Or do Dumbledore. You know, like, you have these Harry or Wizarding World stories. You know, like Dumbledore, a Wizarding World story. You know, like something like that. That would make more sense than trying to jam Newt Scamander into all of these.
And Newt,
you know what I'm saying? So that's that. The last one comes from Baker. Now, if you recall, Baker was brought up by another emailer, and they wanted us to give Baker a shout out. And for his birthday. And Baker wrote into us saying, thank you so much for all the shout outs, guys. I've told all of my Harry Potter fans to check out this podcast. You have helped me so much over these past few months. You see, in August, my beautiful wife, Colleen, was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, and my world came crashing down around me. And while we still have a bit of fight ahead of us, Colleen is shaping up to come out on top. While all of this has been going on, your podcast has been a great escape for me. It's 1 hour a week where I feel like I can just unwind, relax, and laugh. And I was so happy to hear that Mary didn't have to go down the same path as my wife, as you two have already been through your share this year. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for everything. Best wishes to you in yours in the holiday season. And please keep doing what you are doing.
Thank you, Baker.
I don't think you know just how much of a Lumos you are in our time of Nox. Baker, I thank you. This is unbelievable. And he follows this up by saying, Crookie is perhaps the greatest thing to ever happen to a podcast ever, or maybe of all time. Accio friendship.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Baker.
Well, Baker, you know what? We're going to take Dejana's gift and give it to you. So I think this is good. So Baker, can you send me an email? Let me know when you hear this. And
For you or for your wife?
Oh, for you or your wife, and we'll arrange it so that you get this. So send me an email when you hear it. All right, Marvin, you ready to close this bad boy out?
I am.
Let's do it.
Thank you all so incredibly much for tuning in and for hanging on out with us as we continue to delve into the Goblet of Fire. Please reach out to us on social media. We do also want to give you a heads up that the months of January, February, March, and April are going to be very, very busy for Blake and I in regards to podcasting. We cover the show This Is Us. So if you do watch that show, there's a podcast called This Is Us Too. And that is Blake and I. So we'll be covering this final season. Outlander begins in March. So Outlander cast will be back in full effect. And Bridgerton also comes out in March. So Blake and I are going to be podcasting almost every single day. Make sure you follow us on our social medias, as I said. You can go to maryandblake.com to see more about those podcasts and wish us luck and energy.
So we're going to take so many vitamins.
Yes.
We need all the vitamins.
Yes.
And anything else that you guys can think of. Ginseng. Whatever. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So much caffeine.
I'm Mary.
My name is Blake.
Mischief managed.